Alright, take a look at this match. We're on the play. Decent start, but a little bit clunky here in the middle. We have the 2 elves and the Scavenging Ooze, but then no plays till 4 and 5, so we gotta kind of hope at least one of our elves stick here. Opponent's mulliganing aggressively, so maybe Hammer or Auras. Eight and elf, gain some life. That was dumb. Shouldn't put Jegantha in my hand. I was thinking I could activate and eat the elf, but kind of screwed up there. No, I'm doing a recording, dear. I lost that game because I attacked with Scavenging Ooze and we had no business doing it, so. Alright. Akroan War is a little bit like clunky against them, so it's just better to kind of trim on that. Could potentially trim on Skysovereigns, but if I didn't punt massively, we at least had a chance because Skoos would have kind of stabilized the board a little bit, except for Bonecrusher itself. So maybe would have bought us enough time to start casting our Akroan Wars and Chariots. Alright, Sand just doesn't do anything mana-wise. Sand almost has too much mana, but we'll go put back a Chariot. Kinda hope our elf lives again. If they spend their entire turn killing the elf, it's kind of whatever. Talent Scoops. Yep, hands reasonable. Speed on Shaper Sanctuary here. They kill it, we draw a card, so I'm cool with that. So I decided to go face. Alright. Chain Whirler. Well, that's the way to deal with it, I guess. Never understand why people try to go. Alright, Torbran's definitely a terrifying card. Would have loved to go 4th land Chariot, but this is pretty reasonable. I mean, sure, they can get this out of the way, deal us 4, but we're drawing a card, presumably getting us closer to... or not. Okay, sure. Well, when you don't draw lands, you just kind of die. This is going to deal us 3. Even if we could play Chariot, it would deal us 5. Or sorry, 4, 6. So we have to play Bonecrusher. Take 3 and like it. And hope to trade here, but then we're just dead to this and this. Yep, that punt game 1 definitely hurt us. So, alright, back for another match. We're going to play this time. Let's again kind of have the all the mana in the world, nothing to do with it, but still think you keep this hand. Rub against Rakdos, perhaps. How many of my cards do you want with your Thoughtseize? Chariot? Sure. Holding on to Elf and Land simply because our opponent plays Graveyard Trespasser. We want a card in hand to be able to pitch. So I'm not going to play the Copperline Gorge, although it would make whatchamacallit more powerful. So just taking an opportunity to draw a card. And unless your main deck and sweepers, you're just pretty much dead there. Alright, so probably want to bring an Arlen. Shaper Sanctuaries, maybe go down on Elves a little bit. Akroan War can be backbreaking, but it can also be middling depending on how they play the game. I think we'll show you one of those. Because from the Rakdos side, they're likely bringing in, more attrition cards, things like, their sweepers, extinction events, the one that destroys all creatures 3 mana or less, which is escaping me at the moment that they've been playing more of lately. Might bring in Duresses, they might board out Thoughtseizes and Duresses, it just depends. Like, you can bring in things like a Braid and Kolaghan's Command, but otherwise vehicles could be a bit of a pain to deal with. The Explorer version has things like Bedevil potentially in their list, so they have more potential answers to Chariots and Skysovereigns than the traditional Pioneer version does, actually, which is kind of funny, just because Bedevil instead of Dreadbore. But do I risk this hand? I think on the draw we can risk it. On the play it might be a little bit too clunky. Alright, it's going to bail us out with a hand, which is nice. Bankbuster, sure. gotta take Skysovereign here, right? Sure, this plays into a sweeper, but if we don't, then they just get to continue to pick us off with whatever. They're likely going to lean on sweepers here. Maybe they're a little bit light on lands. Nope. Okay. Do this. Fire this up for 1. Okay, now they have to have a sweeper or they're just basically dead. Because Akroan War would just get them. And they can't rely on just a creature to stabilize. Like if they played Shieldred. And, yep, once again, they can kind of play around Akroan War, but at the same time, they eventually have to commit creatures to the board, and it just would get them. Back for our third match. Once again, pretty well balanced hand. Elf, some 3-mana plays, Skysovereign, some things to do if our elf dies. So, against the Urion deck, a little bit scary, but alright, so it looks like we're up against Doom Foretold, perhaps. Kind of a forced block. And we have to kill it because if they give Leyline and Binding, Hexproof and whatever, we're in a world of trouble anyway, so. Interesting. Night of Autumn, maybe? Thought they would have gotten something like Titan of Ministry, but I guess this line's going to take care of the game either which way, so. Yep, kind of hard to beat the value engine. hands. Dangerous to leave this exposed, but if they want to leyline binding or something, I think I'm fine with that overall. Feels like as bad of a matchup for Gruul as it is for Rakdos. But, you know, I could have left the mana open for this, but alright, Pun's got another bitter reunion. Pitching a land. And we got bailed out by drawing one of our copies. Seiju there. Shaper Sanctuary, I don't think is really the kind of game plan we want to be playing. I don't know what Akroan War is either. Maybe like 1 or 2 copies of Running Volley. Nah. Let's bring in a Singleton Shaper Sanctuary. Once again, Jegantha conditions aren't met because of Ember Cleave. I think we just need to get them dead, so Cleave is a little bit better than that than Skysovereign or Jegantha overall. I mean, if there's a hand that can get them dead, this is certainly a hand that can do it. Although Trial of Ambition on the draw is going to be kind of backbreaking if they draw it. Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice to steal a win against a deck that should be a pretty terrible matchup for us. Alright, we're back for the wrap after our first quick 3 matches with Gruul Midrange in Best of 3 Explorer. Now, I did a very similar gameplay on the Pioneer channel. That version had Miglos. That card was very impressive over a couple copies of Lovestruck Beast. But really the heart and soul of the deck in matchups where you kind of have to be the aggressor is Reckless Stormseeker. It really makes it possible to do some things that a deck like Rakdos can struggle with, and that being closing out games. When you're up against Enigmatic Fires or Karplusan Fires or Mono Green, sometimes you just need to close out the game, and one drop into Reckless Stormseeker into Seeker's Chariot, quite a difficult combination to beat. And then when you pair that with sideboard cards like Ember Cleave, just being able to close out the game, really powerful. We certainly punted against Mono Red. I felt like we should have won that first game, and maybe we could have easily closed out this set 3-0. The struggle with Mono Red against a deck like this is much like Ponza versus Burn in Modern. If your opening hand is too reliant on Llanowar and Elves and Elvish Mystic, you really get punished. You do have interaction for their early creatures, and you do have ways to kind of clog up the board. But, you don't have a ton of ways to gain life. You have Scavenging Ooze or Bust kind of in the main deck. Even in the sideboard, you don't really have many ways to gain life, and most of the sideboard is kind of geared towards, the white and the red creatures. So a deck like Mono Red's going to catch you off guard a little bit as far as like bringing in additional removal spells. But, still additional bringing in Scavenging Ooze, bringing in Shaper's Sanctuary, kind of buys you some time in those situations. Akroan War continues to... It does what it does. It's good against the big dumb idiot decks, you know, against decks like Mono Green, Rakdos, good against fight rigging decks, etc. And decks that are kind of relying on big dumb idiots to kind of clog the board. Mono Green Aggro, also a deck to potentially run into. Or the Mirror Match, you know, just stealing this. Obviously the ability to force a crew of vehicles and then their creature dies before they get it back. Preferable. But, you know, the deck that I pulled this list from should have been a third Mutavault over the second copy of the Den of the Bugbear. We're a little bit tight on wild cards right now, otherwise it would have that and Miglos in the deck. But, you know, as far as the sideboard, you know, Scavenging Ooze and Unlicensed Hearse, being able to bring that again in against against Greasefang. Whenever I played this deck in Pioneer this past weekend, running Volleys and Fries, and these cards were really key against Greasefang. I beat that deck twice. Arlen's an interesting one of. It's a nice grindy card against Blue-White X, against Rakdos, etc. So definitely there. Snarvines was a card that I kind of struggled to think what matchups you really want this. I mean, it's okay against Control, but really it's good against a deck like you know, Enigmatic Fires between this and Boseiju kind of bailing us out a little bit. Embercleave allowing us to close out the game before they can kind of do the thing. And then, you know, Unlicensed or Scavenging Ooze, you know, we've already kind of covered all those. One card you could potentially consider over some of these Hearses and Scavenging Oozes, something like Klothys. Klothys is a little bit slower, but, you know, does provide you with a little bit of a life buffer in some situations against some of the racing decks. A deck I would be interested in testing this against a little bit more would be decks like Mono Blue Spirits and Mono White Humans. I think those are both decks that potentially go under what this deck does. And, you know, I'll continue to play this deck a little bit more, hoping to run into those matchups. They're a little bit rare on the ladder than they used to be. Really, aggro decks in general are kind of on the decline, it feels, in Pioneer. You know, Mono White, Mono White, Mono Blue Spirits, those decks really seem to be kind of in the decline. You see a lot of, like, Rakdos, you see a lot of the Fires variants, you see some Mono Green. You run into Angels on occasion still, but, you know, like this in the Pioneer format, the larger, obviously, the thing that the Explorer is based off of, the format's really kind of slowed down, so you're kind of more in this mid-range slugfest, which opens things up for Lotus Field in the Pioneer, but obviously that deck doesn't quite exist yet in Explorer, although it is certainly getting closer. But that'll be it for this week's video. Sorry it's a little bit late posting, but this weekend was a bit busy when I would normally do the recording for this, so figured better late than never. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you've gotten this far in the video, and hope to see you for the next video.